the original question was, how do you tell the difference between feeling like you could have done something different and demonstrating that you, in fact, could have done something different? I have no solution. I've never heard anybody give a solution to that other than, well, I really feel like I can.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Grab a seat, because this one is a proper brain bender. In this clip, atheist Matt Dillahunty goes head-to-head with Christian apologist Braxton Hunter over one of the oldest questions there is. Do we actually have free will, or is every choice you've ever made already locked in by your biology? Braxton leans on that gut feeling that we're obviously free, while Matt keeps pressing one ruthless question. Can you ever prove you could have done otherwise? What follows is a calm, surgical takedown that builds slowly and then lands hard. Stick around to the finish, because the strongest moment isn't where you'd expect it. It sneaks up near the back half, and you do not want to miss how Matt turns the tables. While the video plays, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're tuning in from. I genuinely love seeing how far this channel reaches. Alright, enough from me. Let's get into it.
I've moved back towards the notion that we don't have free will of any sort.
Oh, okay.
But that's not... Okay. This is why I said it's too complicated. It'd be something I'd be happy to discuss in detail. But I also don't know that it's relevant.
Okay, but given the circumstances, my doing this right now, even though I experience that as a free choice and all those kind of things, and there's thoughts and everything, and I'm thinking through it, that was determined and could not have been otherwise, because our mental states are reducible to our brain states, which are reducible to our biology, right?
I'm just saying that I have no way of knowing that that wasn't determined. How would you show that this was actually, that whether or not this felt like something I did voluntarily, or if I just feel it? Because we have scientific studies to show that the brain makes decisions before the consciousness is aware of it. And that is troubling. It's something we haven't resolved.
The lipid experiments, we could talk about that, but here's the thing.
I'm not saying that we've reached a conclusion. I'm just saying that that's what the data show now.
Okay, but the point is, your position currently is that my doing this could not have been otherwise.
No.
Given my circumstance,
I have no idea if you could have done otherwise, and I have no idea how you could demonstrate that you could have done it otherwise. So anyone saying that they could have done otherwise is now making...
But that's determinism.
No.
Okay. We got to the end of the first 6 minutes. Now Matt will cross-examine, lead the cross-examination for the next
Sure, I won't leave that
6
as a no. I'll use some of my time to get this.
Sure.
Saying you couldn't have done otherwise would be determinism. Saying I'm not convinced you could have done otherwise is not determinism. It's a recognition that determinism is essentially part of this, but I don't know how you would show that you could have done otherwise. That's the problem with that.
Right.
But
well, that wasn't, I mean, I was asking you, and that sounds like respectfully, that sounds like a little bit of a dodge. It sounds like saying, I don't know how you would determine that. That wasn't what I was asking. Okay. I was asking, on your view...
How can you tell, here's my question.
Okay.
How can you tell the difference between feeling like you could have done otherwise and actually having been able to do otherwise?
Okay, here's a couple of things. I know you won't like the first one. You might like the second one, but I doubt it. Okay. The first one is, I believe, so our immediate experience that we seem to have libertarian freedom. You know, you've probably seen John Searle and others say things like, look, it seems when I do this that I could have just as easily done this, and that is very difficult, and that's very powerful to escape. So, and I'm trying to be quick, but so, my immediate experience of libertarian freedom, a good argument has to have premises that are plausible, which means more likely to be true than not. And any argument structured that would try to convince me that libertarian freedom does not exist would rely on one or more premises that are less plausible than my immediate experience of libertarian freedom.
Sure. But that doesn't, okay, so the question was, how can you, okay, where's the second one on how you can demonstrate?
The second one is that I think if we don't have libertarian freedom, then rational affirmations are impossible. And there's a third one, too. You want me to go ahead and say it or wait? No,
because I'll deal with this one, and we've got other questions, and I don't want to spend all night on free will. Okay. But this was something I wanted to address in the rebuttal as well, and that's the notion that a calculator can reach a right answer irrespective of whether or not it has any free will. So saying that we couldn't have reasonable positions without free will just seems to me an assertion that doesn't have a justification.
You have to understand something right out of the gate. Matt Dillahunty does not blink here. He calmly tells the room that the thing he feels like he's freely choosing right now was determined and could not have been otherwise, because our mental states reduce to brain states and brain states reduce to biology. And this is the part people miss. That isn't Matt being edgy. That's Matt refusing to pretend he knows something he doesn't. Braxton Hunter keeps trying to get him to confess to some scary label, and Matt just won't take the bait. Then comes the line that quietly wins the whole exchange. Matt Dillahunty says he has no idea how you could even demonstrate that you could have done otherwise. Sit with that. Everybody walks around convinced they could have picked the other option, but feeling it and proving it are two completely different animals, and nobody has ever closed that gap. Here's context that makes Matt's point land even harder. Back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran experiments where the brain showed measurable activity before a person was consciously aware they had decided to move. That's documented. That's not a vibe. So when Matt suggests the feeling of freedom might arrive after the brain already acted, he's standing on real science. And what's Braxton's big counter? Braxton Hunter says if we don't have libertarian freedom, then rational affirmations are impossible. And Matt drops the cleanest reply you'll hear all night. Matt Dillahunty points out that a calculator reaches the right answer whether or not it has any free will. That is the whole ballgame. A machine with zero freedom computes truth all day long. So the claim that you need free will to hold a reasonable position just seems to him like an assertion with no justification. And he's right.
Is that a question?
No. But it can be now that we've... Yeah.
Well, can I address that since you did say it?
Well, this will touch on that, so maybe. The first question I had, is reasonable non-belief possible?
I think there are people who don't believe, and from their perspective, they feel like there are good reasons for their non-belief.
Wow, okay. I'm trying to figure out which of us dodged more right then.
As long as we both admit we're dodging a little.
Well,
Actually, I don't think I was dodging.
So people can, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that you're stating that people can be convinced they're reasonable even if they're not.
I think, yeah.
Okay, I would agree with that, but like going back to the moon example, those people were being reasonable, it's just their conclusion was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Is reasonable non-belief possible in the context of, for example, the moon or the Earth-Sun example?
As far as what now?
Like you could come to the wrong conclusion, but you could be completely reasonable based on the
You can be
evidence
reasonable and be wrong.
Okay.
That's true.
Whew, boy. So
I still would like to answer that thing.
go ahead. Why not?
What was it again?
Your
Okay. The
third
calculator.
justification for-
The calculator could be right, but it's purely a deterministic piece of technology, right? Basically.
Yes.
Here's the thing. That kind of proves my point, because my position is that if libertarian freedom does not exist, then rational affirmations are impossible. That doesn't mean that your beliefs are false. In fact, if it were possible for a person to have, and I don't know that there's anything contradictory about this, for a person to have 100% true beliefs, they could have 100% true beliefs, and yet they didn't get there rationally.
Sure.
And the reason for that is because rationality definitionally is reducible to reason, and reason is the process by which you deliberate over between beliefs and choose which is a good or a bad thing to affirm. And if the libertarian freedom does not exist, then we don't have rationality is impossible because you can't choose against the irrational.
Yeah, I don't think that I accept that at all, because
I didn't expect you to.
we are decision-making machines, and the things that feed into us, the fact that we're having an argument or whatever else, somebody may or may not become convinced, and to them they may have this experience of, oh, I've changed my position on this. Nothing about determinism suggests or implies that you cannot change your decision based on new information that you receive, that you're not a computer making all this. It's the fact that it's more complex obfuscates that.
This is the part that blows my mind, because watch how Braxton tries to flip it. Braxton Hunter asks whether reasonable non-belief is even possible, like he's laying a trap. And Matt Dillahunty walks right through it. Matt's whole point is that you can be reasonable and still be wrong. Those two things are not enemies. And here's what people don't realize. This is one of the most important ideas in all of clear thinking, and most folks get it backwards. Being reasonable is about your process, not your conclusion. A person 500 years ago could look up, reason carefully with the tools they had, and conclude the sun moves around the earth. Wrong answer. Completely reasonable process. Matt is hammering that exact nail, and it matters more than people give it credit for. Then Braxton Hunter says the calculator example actually proves point, that without freedom, rational affirmations are impossible. And I'm sorry, you cannot have it both ways. You can't admit a calculator gets the right answer with no freedom, and then turn around and insist freedom is required for getting right answers. That's a contradiction sitting right in the middle of the room, and Matt sees it instantly. But here's where Matt really plants the flag. Matt Dillahunty says nothing about determinism suggests or implies that you cannot change your decision based on new information. This is what people get so wrong about determinism. They picture a robot frozen in place. No. You're a decision-making machine that takes in fresh data and updates, The process is just so complex that it feels like something else entirely. Matt says that complexity is exactly what obfuscates it. That's not a cop-out. That's the most honest description of a thinking mind anybody offered all night, and it quietly dismantles the cartoon version of determinism the other side keeps swinging at.
Which is the original question was, how do you tell the difference between feeling like you could have done something different and demonstrating that you in fact could have done something different? I have no solution. I've never heard anybody give a solution to that other than, well, I really feel like I can, and it would be absurd for me to think
Well,
that
actually,
I couldn't.
first of all, I do think.
How do you test it?
Well, I do think that if you do seem to have a belief about something that seems almost impossible to doubt, then you are justified in affirming that and believing that until someone gives you good reason to believe that that is not the case. Ooh. So I do think that's true. However, I actually have other reasons. One of those is the moot morality thing. I think that if libertarian freedom does not exist, then we're left with moot morality. And what I mean by that is whether someone ends up becoming a philanthropist or ends up becoming a sex offender, ultimately, it's not that they didn't think through things, and it's not that they didn't, but ultimately it was determined.
Yeah, but that doesn't, so the primary...
Do you grant that?
Hang on,
I'm sorry,
I got 10 seconds, or 16. The primary concern about free will and morality is how do we hold people accountable, and the truth is whether or not they have free will, that was the agent that took the action and we hold them accountable, and we may not in fact have any choice in that thing. But this notion that you should believe something until somebody changed their mind is actually a fallacy. The notion that the burden of proof is on somebody trying to change your mind. I understand that's how it works in practice, but that doesn't mean that your position is rationally justified.
I'll go ahead and respond to that if that's okay, because it was supposed to be a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So here's the thing. This came up in your debate with Mike Licona quite a bit.
Yeah.
You felt like the whole night that that's what he was doing. And I don't think that's what he was doing, but I can tell you tonight, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying if you believe something, until there's good enough evidence, you're justified in believing it, even if it's something like the supernatural. What I'm saying is something like libertarian freedom, where it seems impossible, it seems almost absurd to deny it. Yeah, it seems like an extraordinary claim. It seems like there's less willing suspension of disbelief in the Terminator movies because at least there the robots were robots, So I would need some extraordinary evidence. Where I come from, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
And here it is. This is the moment the whole thing falls apart for the other side. Matt Dillahunty circles back to the core question. How do you tell the difference between feeling like you could have done otherwise and actually proving you could have? And then he says the thing nobody can answer. Matt says he's never heard anybody give a solution other than, well, I really feel like I can. That's it. That is the entire foundation the other side is standing on. A feeling. And you have to understand why that's so damaging. Braxton Hunter's strongest card all night was the appeal to immediate experience. It just feels like I'm free, so that should count. But Matt already showed you that the feeling is the very thing in question. You can't use the feeling as proof of the thing when the feeling is exactly what we're trying to explain. It loops back on itself, and Matt exposed the loop without even raising his voice. Then they get to morality, and I love how grounded Matt stays. The other side wants you to panic. If there's no free will, how do we hold anyone accountable? And Matt Dillahunty's answer is so clean. Matt says the real question is how we hold people accountable, and the truth is that whether or not they had freedom, that was the agent who took the action, and we hold them accountable anyway. Society still protects itself. The fear evaporates the second you look at it directly. And then Matt catches Braxton in a thinking error almost nobody notices. Matt Dillahunty points out that the burden of proof landing on whoever's trying to change your mind is just how things work in practice. But that does not make your position rational. Read that twice. Comfort is not correctness. Refusing to be moved is not the same thing as being right. Now here's the part I find almost funny. Braxton Hunter closes by saying extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, the skeptic's own line, and turns it around to defend libertarian free will. But look at what he's actually doing. He's calling determinism the extraordinary claim, when determinism is the one direction the brain sciences keep quietly pointing. Matt never needed the last word. He won this 3 exchanges before the bell. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.